I think in poultry nutrition, we have underestimated the potential of, for example, broilers and also layers to use these type of high fiber ingredients. It's been very easy in the poultry industry to just pick from the upper shelves, as I say, with the maize and wheat and easy to digest cereals, for example.
What are the strategies to reduce feed costs and optimize feed efficiency in a volatile market? That's the subject we are going to discuss in this episode of Future Feed Talks. My name is Iris Hoffman and I'm editor at Misette International Media, and this series is in cooperation with DSM, Firmenich Animal Nutrition and Health. We are discussing the strategies to reduce feed costs and optimize feed efficiency with nutritionist and researcher Professor Birger Svihus. He works for the Faculty Biosciences at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences in Norway and is an expert in poultry nutrition. Hello, Professor Birger. Nice to meet you. Hi.
Good to be here.
The increasing feed costs around the globe can be seen and felt, and one reason is the changing climate. To dive right in, what are some strategies to reduce those costs?
Well, first of all, it is important to stress the obvious. I usually say more of the same. We need actually to do more of the same. I know often it's not kind of considered popular to do more of the same as something new, but we have to remember that poultry nutrition in particular and animal nutrition in general has become extremely efficient due to a very precise and targeted research over the years and genetic improvements of the animals that we are using for food production. So, and we need to continue that. We need to continue that journey into what I call precision nutrition.
Exactly.
Or molecular nutrition, if you can also call it. I think because I want to stress this because these days, first of all, it's kind of sounding a little bit boring because we are already having a very precise nutrition. And, it's about the small margins of improvements. But we should do that because it's the small step over a long period of time that has brought us where we are now. Of course, in addition to the more disruptive revolutions in different types of understanding of poultry, for example. So more of the same. And I also have to say, and I want to say that because being a European, in Europe, there's a lot of pressure towards moving from the fast-growing broiler chickens to more slow-growing broiler chickens, and that will have a significant cost in terms of feed efficiency. It's also something I will talk about tomorrow.
And then you're saying we have to keep going. Easier said than done, maybe. How do you see that happening?
Well, first of all, I think there is a great potential to further utilize the knowledge we have in using exogenous enzymes that can be added to the diet, which can help the bird in either removing antinutrients or make the nutrients more available. I think that there is there's a continuous effort in developing new types of enzymes, more effective enzymes. And we also see now a very interesting move into enzymes that are actually the same enzymes that the bird is producing, but where adding an additional source of these enzymes exogenously may boost digestibility. Amylases, for example, proteases, and maybe lipases in the future. And other components that can be added to the diet to boost digestibility, and nutrient retention is also very promising.
You were already talking about precision nutrition. Are there also other ways to be more efficient with the feed?
Talking about continuing with a precision nutrition, I think, what has had has been of large importance in the recent years, recent 20, 30, 40 years, has been the constant development of new amino acids being available industrially at an affordable price. That has allowed us to reduce the protein content in the diet, but optimizing the amino acid composition. So we have increased efficiency and less spillage, for example, nitrogen spillage to the environment. So that's another thing. A lot of these amino acids currently, the limitation is, the industrial process to produce them cheaply enough so they can be able to complement the diet. And when we do that, it allows us to more flexibility in terms of what type of raw materials we're going to use.
Yeah.
And so these are the examples, really, but important examples. Another group of another big area is everything related to the microbiome and the digestive tract. That's a very interesting field, very immature, I have to say, in my opinion. So a lot of trial and error, including, the error.
Yeah.
And so, it's much more complex material to work with. But I certainly think that there are a great potential in also that kind of research. Although I think that more basic research is needed in that area.
Yeah, exactly. You already said something about raw materials. How important is that quality of the materials?
Well, of course, the quality of the raw materials is very important, but for many reasons, we're talking about price, we're talking about the population growth and increasing competition for the materials currently used for poultry, like in feed of poultry. That's one issue that perhaps will will force the industry to look for alternative feed sources, also from a political point of view, and maybe also
more local.
Yeah, and more local. Ingredients that haven't traveled so far. It's important for the carbon footprint and things like that. And but also the climate change itself, which would potentially make some areas where there's currently a large feed material production, perhaps that will diminish. That some areas will be too arid, for example. So this means that we should definitely look for other raw materials, local raw materials. In Europe, the big challenge is, of course, protein raw materials. But even cereals, I think that we perhaps should move over to using more of the high fiber cereals, like barley, for example, instead of wheat. Also because, depending on how the market develops, it's also possible that ruminant production will diminish, for example, and there will be more cereals that will be needed to be used in poultry production because they're not used in other animal productions. I'm just now guessing, I don't know, at least in Norway we have this new dietary recommendations coming up, actually are Nordic, where the population are recommended to eat less red meat. And that may, if the public advice follow, that may result in a reduction in red meat production and a reduction in the use of these coarse cereals for ruminants. So that would mean that they would be available to a lower price for poultry, for example.
Right.
And that is a very interesting point because I think in poultry nutrition, we have underestimated the potential of, for example, broilers and also layers to use these type of high fiber ingredients. It's been very easy in the poultry industry to just pick from the upper shelves, as I say, with the maize and wheat and easy to digest cereals, for example. And I think in the future, we have thus been thinking that it's not worth the effort to use, for example, barley, which is grown, in Scandinavian countries in large quantities, but also in Spain and other countries with significant cultivation of barley due to that, for example, it's drought resistant.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a difficult road, do you think, to change?
Yeah, I don't know. This is what we are faced with, trying to predict what will happen. There's a lot of political, there's a desired political movement in that direction. Whether the population or the public will follow that direction is, of course, a different question, or a difficult question. It's a different question, sorry.
A different,
right? So you never know, for example, how the consumer preference will change and whether they will change from red meat to poultry, for example. Mm-hmm. And that will, of course, have a large impact. We don't know how well the agriculture, the cereal cultivation will be affected by the changes in climate. So we don't know how severe shortage of raw materials will be. We don't know what the political opinion will be about, for example, soybean and soybean meal, where at least in Norway, the public is kind of have been influenced to believe that soybeans is something bad.
Yeah.
Which it isn't.
You hear a lot of people think that.
Yeah, a lot of people, and it's so wrong. Soybeans, it's one of the most wonderful sources of protein, plant protein we can use.
Really good amino acids profile as well,
exactly,
right?
It's amino acid profile. It is the fact that they're high in protein, mm-hmm. and it's the fact that the soybeans are also providing a lot of oil.
Yeah.
So, soybeans are, there's hardly any legumes even that can compete with soybeans in providing quantity of protein and in addition contribute with fat. So there's a misunderstanding in the public that, soybean means, one thing is GMO, another thing is that soybean means destroying the jungle.
Yeah.
Right?
The rainforest.
Sorry, yeah. The rainforest, not the jungle, the rainforest, which is absolutely not true. There may be a grain of truth in it in some area in Brazil, but other countries like US, for example, do not have there's no issue like that at all.
No.
So this is, but we don't know how the public will change, mm-hmm. and all these things. So it's definitely, as always, the future is unknown. But I think that is really interesting and there has been some recent research which really has demonstrated that the broiler chicken, as long as the feed quality is good enough, are able to compensate to a very large extent with a high fiber diet by increasing its feed intake. The potential is much higher than we thought. There was just recently a publication from the UK showing that by increasing the amount of oatals, now I'm getting very technical, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be, but by increasing the oatals percentage up to 30% in the diet, and oatals generally have no nutritional value. Mm-hmm. The birds, the broiler chickens, were able to increase the feed intake to maintain the same growth rate. So that is really showing that I think the birds are more robust than we thought. Yeah. In terms of accepting more, less nutrient dense and easy to digest ingredients. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, just to sum up, what would be your main message?
To sum up, we need to continue this journey into precision nutrition by doing more of the same. In addition, I think there is a definitely potential for poultry to also eat more locally sourced, high fiber ingredients. The birds have an amazing capacity for this. And in addition, I think that there is definitely a lot of potential for saving feed cost by just processing the feed sufficient for what the bird needs for growth. And I think we are kind of, my hypothesis is that we are putting too much energy into the pelleting process these days. So I guess that could be
You're more into the mash?
Well, yes, a mash is an extreme example. I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure if mash is really the most cost-effective alternative. But what I'm thinking about is to still do the pelleting process, but with not spending so much energy in producing a so hard and durable pellet that we produce today, which we do produce because we think this is what birds need. But in reality, and which mash feeding shows, the bird has a much more flexibility in its ability to feed, even if it contains significant amounts of non-pellet material. So that's, again, robustness in birds is higher than we think, both in terms of nutrient density and in terms of physical quality of the diet.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Do you want to see more of future feed talks or listen to the podcast? Click on the links below.